Hi everyone. So now we're going to get started with actually creating our project for our third coding for good badge. And as you can see, this is our final project. So this is what we're going to be working towards today in our session. So basically the point of this app is to create something to help you keep track of your health, right? So what we're going to do is we have some multiple choice options to set our daily step goal. And let's say I want to set my daily step goal as 5,000. It's going to set our step goal up here in the top so that you can see what you're working towards. And then as soon as you click the star, you can add some steps. So each time you click the star, you add about 500 steps and you can see your total steps. So once you keep clicking, I reach 5,000 and it displays a message for our winning message. Okay, so now just take a second to pause the video here and go to Google Classroom and open up the template. So your template should look something like this. As you can see, it's completely different. It has all of our 3 slides on it, but we're going to change stuff up to make sure it works, okay? So just pause the video here and just go to Google Classroom real quick to find the template. Okay, once you've found the template, let's actually get started with our game. So the first thing I see is that the background is pretty plain, right? It's only white. We want it to be something fun. So to do that, we're going to go into the background section and then click background. And there's a bunch of cool backgrounds that we have here. So I think I'm going to pick, I kind of like this one. So all I'm going to do is it has our code here that we need to put in, but typing that out, it's going to take forever, right? So all we have to do is click copy. And then on line 3, you can see that it says that we want to set the backdrop, right? So we just want to press the right click button on our mouse or keyboard and then click paste, and it has our backdrop. So it should automatically load in for you like that. So just take a second to do that. Okay, the next thing we want to do is we want it to display some instructions on top of here, like we had over here. And we want it to say, set your daily step goal, right? So over here, it says to type our code on the following lines. So over here where it says text, inside the 2 quotations, we're going to type in what we want our instructions to be. I'm just going to type in, set your daily step goal. So I did that, and it's still not showing up. And that's because I haven't actually specified a color yet. So I'm just going to say black. And if you look here, you can actually see this over here, like on the very, on the bottom of everything, you can actually see that it has step goal. But we want it on the top and we want it way bigger. So we're going to actually change the size and the XY coordinates. So right after the comma, there's 3 more lines. So let's go to line 12. Let's say size. And we want our size to be, let's try 40. And we can always change it based on the screen. But now you can see it shows up in the background a little bit. Now, after I type in size, I want to put a comma. And then I want to put in my XY coordinates. So on line 13, I'm going to put my X coordinate as 0. And this will help keep it centered. So this is the center, and you can see X is 0. On the very top of the screen over here, it tells you the XY coordinates of your mouse. Over here is 0. So that means it's just going to be centered. I want it somewhere on the top here, right? So what I'm actually going to do for the Y coordinate, which is how tall it's going to be, I'm going to say Y colon, I'm going to say max Y. And that's for my screen. It's going to be different for everyone else's screen. That's why we say max Y. So whatever your screen's length is, that's what it's going to set it as. And then let's just subtract 30 from this. So the reason we can't just put max y is because the middle of the step goal, like the middle of our instructions, that's what's going to be at the max y. So we need to subtract like 30 or 20, whichever one you want, depending on the size you kept it, whichever one looks good to you. So just take about 30 more seconds. So you can pause the video here and you can take a little time to like set your instructions to what you want them to look like. Okay, so now we need to create our multiple choice buttons. So over here is our code to create option 1, option 2, and option 3. And these are our little puppies, and these are the default images, but you can choose different images. Like in our example, we had the soccer ball. So what we want to do is we want to go into sprites and backgrounds, and then we want to click this image button. It's the third button on there. And then it gives us a bunch of cool images. So I'm just going to choose, I like this one. So what I'm going to do, instead of copying everything, I'm just going to copy the URL. And make sure you copy everything from the URL, including the comma at the end. And to copy, you just press Control-C. And to paste it over here, you press Control-V. So you can see my first one went in quite nicely. And I'm just going to do that for my second one on line 28 and my third one on line 36. Okay, so in the end, once you're done with this, just take about 20 more seconds to do this while I talk. You should put your URLs, they should be the same image, but you should put them on line 20, line 28, and line 36. And these are your 3 multiple choice options. Okay, so now we're just going to do a small little thing. So whenever you have the color default, so over here I have the color of the text, right? I'm creating some text on the bottom for my options. So I put 5,000, 8,000, and 10,000. And let's say I picked a different background. Let's say over here it might have been, the clouds might have been covering it, so it might have been hard to read. I can actually change the color of my text. So you have to go inside the quotations where it says color, and you can type in any color that you want. I can do pink. Pink's kind of hard to read. Yeah, you can have blue. You can even have brown. Yeah, so you can pick a bunch of different options that you want. Okay, so this is just to make your game look a little better. So just take another minute to do that. But make sure you can read the numbers against your background. That's the most important thing. Okay, so now that we're done with that, we want to go to line 73, where it says create a variable called step goal. And this is to store the value of whatever they pick, right? Because we want all these emojis and everything to go away once we actually select whichever option we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a variable called step goal. And to create a variable, we type var. So that's basically telling our code, okay, I want to create a variable now. And then I'm going to type step goal, which is the name of my variable. And I'm just going to set it to 1. We don't want to set it to 0 right now, and I'll explain why. But you can basically set it to whatever you want. You can set it to 100, 1,000. It doesn't matter. Anything but 0. You can even set it to a negative number. That should work too. Okay, so now just pause the video here, and if you go into Google Classroom, there should be an array video linked on there. So just take a minute, or I think it's 4 minutes long. So just take a couple minutes to watch that video. If you can't get onto the array video through Google Classroom, the YouTube link is also right here, so you can copy and paste it into your browser and watch it there. So just take about a couple minutes to do that. Okay, so now that you're done watching your array video, we're actually going to create an array. So based on that video, we know that arrays help us store multiple objects in basically one object, right? So we're going to create a variable called step goal array to store our different step goal amounts. So to create an array, since it's a variable, we have to use var again. And we're just going to call this step goal array. And then we're going to put in our 3 different values for our step goals. So we have 5,000, 8,000, and 10,000. So to create an array, we have to put these square brackets. And if you're using a keyboard, they're right above the enter line. So look at your enter key and they should be a little above that. I'm just going to put some square brackets in and type in 5,000. And then I'm going to put a comma to separate my next item, which is 8,000. And then my last number is 10,000. And when you have steps in thousands, we can't put commas in there because then our computer thinks that they're different objects, right? So just don't put in commas in between the numbers. Okay, so now we want to actually set our step goal over here. Since we set it as 1, because we don't really know what the user is picking for their step goal yet, but we need to reset our step goal. So if they click this first option, which is over here, we want them to set the step goal to 5,000. And over here it says step goal equals step goal array, and then it puts the 0 in the hard brackets. And that basically means it's going to the step goal array and it's picking the first object. But instead of 1, it's putting in 0. And that's because in coding, we always start with the number 0. So this is the 0th item, and this is the first item, and then this is the second. So over here, once option 2 is clicked, we wanted to set it to 8,000, so it accesses the second thing in the array, which is actually our first item. So let's go to our third one over here. So it says to use our array to reset the value of step goal. So we want to put step goal over here, and make sure when you spell step goal, you spell it with a capital G, because that's how we spell it everywhere else. So we want to spell it like that. And since we're setting it equal to something, we put an equal sign. And then we call our step goal array. And we want to get our third element, which is actually with the key of 2. So this part is it's kind of confusing. So just take a second to understand that, replay that part where I explain it, and then we can move on to the next part. So now we have our backdrop. So I have it clicking a different backdrop, which is this. If you wanted to change the backdrop, you can just go into sprites and backgrounds, click backdrop, and let's say I wanted New York City. So I can see it says New York City right before JPG, right? So I just copy this part, NYC, and then put it over here. So you can pick a bunch of images like that. But I think I'm going to keep this background. So I'm just going to leave it like this. But now we wanted to hide all of our text options, right? So if I click this, it's not hiding our text options. It's still showing the text and our options, right? So over here, we can see that we have our option hiding and our text for the option hiding. So we're just you can type all of it out, but if you want to make it a bit easier on yourself, you can copy these 6 lines, copy, and then paste them right here. So that's what I'm going to do. But if you want to type it out, just pause it here and you can type it out as well. Okay, so now once we click, let's say we click this. We wanted to display our step goal over here so we know what we're working towards, right? So we're going to go into line 148 where it says step goal. We're going to put a plus sign outside of the quotations. And we're actually going to use our array again to get our step goal. So since this is the second option, what we're going to do is we're going to call the step goal array. Or sorry, this is the third option, but we have to use the second index, remember, because we start from 0, then 1, then 2. So then we put a 2 in there, and then we get our daily step goal showing up. And you can also set the color of this. I kept it as black because my background's light, but you can also change it to something else, like blue will work too. So you can change it to whatever you want. I just kept it black. But if you are changing it to a different color, make sure you change it for the other options too, like over here and over here. Okay, so after we click this, we have our star showing, which is the thing that's called add steps. And then we also have our steps bar showing. And we have our step counter text showing, which is over here. But we're going to add a little bit more to that in a minute. So let's actually move on. Whoops. Let's actually move on to creating, like adding our steps and creating our total daily steps so far instead of just our step goal. So we have to create a variable for our daily steps. So to create a variable, we need to type var. I'm just going to call it steps walk. And I'm going to set it to 0. We always want to start with our steps equaling 0, right? Next, what we're going to do is we have our step bar over here. And it looks like this. And usually you would be able to change the sprite, but not many sprites look like a progress bar. So we're just going to leave it as this for now, okay? But when we start the game, we don't want our step bar showing, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to hide the steps bar. So to do that, we're going to type steps bar dot hide. Okay, so now it automatically ran for me, and the bar that was over here, it was a little blue line, it just disappeared, right? And it's not going to appear again until we click it. So the next thing that I did was create the step counter text, which is the thing that says total steps. But we also wanted to display the steps we've walked so far, right? So what we're going to do is over here, there's a bunch of spaces before the comma. So just type anywhere in the space. We want to put a plus sign, and then we want to add steps walked. And it's one word. So we're going to add steps walked. And right now we have 0 steps, so it's just showing us 0. But we don't really want that showing up when we're setting our daily step goal, right? That would look kind of weird. It's just floating in midair without the bar. So we're actually going to hide our text too. So like we did before, we're just going to type step counter text dot hide. And make sure when you type dot hide, you have your parentheses at the end. It should autofill for you, but in case it doesn't, just make sure you have those. And finally, we create our button to add our steps, right? And I have it as a star, so I have r dash star. But if you go into backgrounds and sprites and click images, you can choose another image. Let's say you want a unicorn. You can just replace r dash star with unicorn, or you can replace it with BB-8. So if you want, you can just look through the different images and pick a new image, but make sure you only replace this part right before the .png. And like we did with the other stuff, we don't want to add steps as soon as they pick their step goal. We wanted to do it after, right? So we're just going to hide our add steps button. So we're just going to say .hide, and it just autofills for me, and now it's hidden. And you guys should be really proud. We're almost at 200 lines of code, so we're doing amazing progress today. So now that we've gotten through this stuff, we also want to increase our step goal, right? So every time our star is clicked, we want to make our progress bar taller and add some numbers to our daily steps walked. So what I have over here on line 193, it says when add steps is clicked. So it says on mouse down, which basically means it's clicked. We want to add 100 steps each time on the line below. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to do steps walked plus equals 500. And another way to write this is steps walked equals steps walked plus 500, right? But this is basically a shortcut that you can use in JavaScript to basically say the same thing. It's just less words, right? And it makes our life easier. So over here, you already have the code written, so you don't really have to do anything, but this is just the code to making the bar higher, okay? Now we want to display our total steps again, right? So all we have to do is type total steps plus steps walked. So on line 200, at the very end of it, after it says total steps, you want to put a plus sign and then the variable steps walked. So now let's actually try this out. And we can see we're adding some steps, right? But we don't really want this you win or displaying from the beginning, right? We want them to actually work for the you win message. So over here, we have our creation of the you win message. If you want to change this, I'm already in the variable, or sorry, I'm already in the sprite section. But if you go there by clicking backgrounds and sprites and then clicking images, you can display another message. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, it says next level. You can put a heart there because that's like energy and exercise. It also has game over if you want to do that. It has a pretty game over too. So there's a bunch of cool options that you can choose. And to replace that, all you have to do is platformer.uwin. You just take that out and type in your new thing. So if I wanted this, I would say RR game over. So once you do that, if you want to do that, just take a minute to pause the video and try that out. So now we want to hide our image, right? So I just named my image you win. And what we're going to do is, like we did with the other stuff, we're just going to say .hide. And this hides it. So now our game is looking a lot better, right? So let's actually test out our game before we go on. So let's say I want 10,000 steps. Keep clicking my button. So I went over my goal, right? But I'm still not going anywhere. Like it's still there. I'm not getting the you win message. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to code most of this forever loop. So you already have some of the code, but we're going to code the rest. So in this if statement, we want to check whether whether our user reached their goal, right? So to do that, we want to say if steps walked is greater than or equal to our step goal, right? And if it is, what do we want it to do? We want to hide the step adder button, right? We don't want it to show our star anymore. So I'm just going to say step adder. Oh, whoops. It's add steps. That's my bad. Sorry about that. So it's add steps dot hide. So let's actually try this out, because as coders, we want to make sure all of our code works, right? We don't want to write like 200 lines without knowing whether a code works or not. We want to make sure it works 100% of the time. So let's say we did have an error message, like in, I don't know, line 10, and we just tested our code out. Now, unlike we were doing before, we used to test out our code every like couple lines, right? So if we did have an error, that would be super annoying to go through all of our code. It would take forever to go through our code to test whether it works or not, right? And to find the error. So that's why we always test out our code. So let's test it out right now. I'm going to click 5,000. So our star is disappearing, which is what we want, but we also want it to display a winning message, right? So our winning message is called "You win," and then we want it to show. We don't want it to hide this time. So we're just going to type .show and then put our parentheses. So now let's try it out again to see if it works. And it works. So now let's add one more tiny thing to make our game look even better. Let's add a new backdrop, okay? Let's do something like a paradise kind of thing to show that, yay, you made it and you've reached your step goal. So I'm going to do, I like this beach. So I'm just going to copy the beach. And you don't have to type out all of this. All you have to do is copy it. And then on line 225, just Control V or right click, and then it'll paste it on there. Now, once you're done, you can test out your game and see if it works, okay? And if there's any part that you got stuck on, you can email us and we can help you out, or you can just rewatch the video on the part you got stuck on. But as you can see, our game works, and when we reach our step goal, we win. And that's basically it for our third Coding for Good badge. And you guys should be super, super proud of yourselves, because this was a hard project. It's almost 225 lines of code. It's over 225 lines of code. So it was a longer project. And I'm super glad that you guys were able to make it this far and even get a good game that you can use to improve your health. So you should be super proud of yourselves and make sure to show your friends and family the awesome game you coded, okay? And so now we're done with our third Coding for Good badge. So what you can do, there's another video on Google Classroom that talks about why coding is super important in our world. And it just shows you that no matter what, you should always persevere and try to do things, even if it's not with coding. But even in coding, there's like so many different aspects of it. Like you can go into business with coding, and it has so many different avenues. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this, and let us know what you did for your project. Please submit your project. We'd love to see it, all right?